We come to you with some breaking news out of the college football recruiting world. Five-star linebacker Sammy Brown has committed to Clemson. Here to react to the news is our Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, and National Recruiting Analyst, Cooper Petagna. I'm Emily Proud, and Andrew, I'm going to start with you. You're part of the crew that puts together these rankings, who ranked him as the #1 linebacker in the nation, the #1 prospect from the state of Georgia. So what kind of player did the Tigers just add?
They're getting a unicorn, a Yeti. I don't know what term you want to use. He's kind of the freak of all freaks. He's got a one-of-one type of athletic background. We're talking about a kid who won a pair of state titles on the wrestling mat. He's on 10.7 in the 100-meter dash, 23.3 in the long jump. And then in the weight room, he power cleans 405 pounds. We like all that. And then, of course, we like on Friday nights as a junior, ran for 1,400 yards and scored 24 touchdowns. And then, you know, he made 115 tackles on defense. So this is a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Again, I said he's a freak. He is a lock for my freaks list every year. A guy that can just get sideline to sideline. Not many individuals that are 225 pounds move like Sammy Brown. So Clemson getting what I think could potentially be a defensive centerpiece for them in the years to come.
Wow, some high praise, Cooper. I personally like the term Yeti just based on the awesome hair that he's got. But what stood out to you when watching Sammy Brown play?
Well, I think he's one of the safest players in this year's class. And Andrew mentioned the athletic background. I think that's something you look at, 34-2 as a wrestler, but track and field, whether it's 100, 200-meter long jump as well. But a three-phase player, and that's somebody who raises the floor of their athletic skill set. What I love about him is this is a guy that, you know, has kind of come up a little bit of Harold Perkins comparisons. They're very different players, but at the same time, you can kind of see the unique skill set. And we talk a little bit about him as a running back, had over 1,400 yards rushing last year at Jefferson, as Andrew mentioned. The reason I bring that up, once he fully develops at the linebacker position, I think he has a ceiling to grow into. He's a guy who's comfortable between the tackles, very explosive, powerful hands at the point of attack, can play sideline to sideline, also comfortable in pass coverage as well. I think his best football is ahead of him. And if you're a Clemson fan, this is a guy who can make an immediate impact at the next level, and somebody who's going to start, could be in that starting conversation day one.
Some high praise for Sammy Brown with the comparisons to Harold Perkins. I mean, Andrew, you hear that, you see the impact that Perkins was able to make for LSU in year one. Clemson fans want to know, how soon are they going to see this guy on the field?
Well, I think Cooper brought it up. When you look at Sammy Brown, right, you know the athletic background. We just talked about all those numbers, whether it be on the track, in the weight room, on the wrestling mat. But when you watch the film, you're like, all right, we know this guy can move, but I think he's still got a ways to go as a defensive linebacker. With that being said, I think he's someone that could come in and play early and make an impact. Maybe it's situational, but man, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, this is going to be a complete football player when he just locks in and plays defense. And I think if you're Clemson, we saw what Peter Woods did, their big prize of the last recruiting cycle. I mean, Clemson, their 2023 defensive line haul was one of the best we've ever seen, right? So you're going to have those guys playing in front of Sammy Brown for the years to come. And I think that's going to free up Sammy Brown, allow him to make plays in the backfield. And I think he's a guy that can bring some, get home as a blitzer off the edge. And I think he can also drop back into coverage. So I think he'll be in that rotation early on. I think the biggest thing with Sammy Brown, too, is just that workman mindset, right? The ability, he wants to get better. So I think he's someone that's going to come in, right, soak it all in. You're going to see him here in the weight room. And then I think he's going to have a role. I'd be surprised if he's not playing for Clemson there in 2024.
When you're a top 5 player nationally, you have a lot of suitors. Our director of recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, put in a crystal ball for Clemson immediately after his trip to Death Valley this weekend. Coop, I mean, he's got interest from Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. Why do you think Dabo won this recruiting battle?
Well, they do things differently at Clemson, and sometimes that's a really good thing. And as you see here in the case of Sammy Brown, I mean, this is a recruitment that they have been in for a really long time. And Clemson is one of those places, we talk about that F word a lot, it's about fit, right? When you get on campus, Clemson and the player alone and their family, it's all about feeling at home. And I think Sammy Brown has had a long-standing relationship with Dabo Swinney, the Clemson staff, where he's had that feeling for a while now that this is the place that kind of fit him. And you talk about the success that Georgia has had, or excuse me, Clemson has had over the last cycle or two in the state of Georgia, in Alabama as well. They signed 11 players from the state of Georgia last year, and this is a guy, one of the best players in the country, number 5 player overall. Georgia's won 2 consecutive national championships, so it says a lot about Clemson, what they're about, and I think this is a perfect marriage between Dabo Swinney and Sammy Brown, and a player that really fits their program, what they're about not only on the field in terms of development, but off the field as well.
Yeah, it sounds like based on his scouting report and everything that you guys have said, Sammy Brown would make sense anywhere he ended up landing. But in your eyes, Andrew, why does Clemson make sense for Sammy Brown?
Well, I think Cooper hit on it. I think the story is here, right? We know Clemson, and I know Tigers fans are tired of hearing about this, right? Dabo doesn't want to go into the transfer portal. And, this time last year, we were all wondering, hey, is the Clemson dynasty, is it over, right? They're taking on water. And Dabo decided to kind of recalibrate how they did the recruiting process. Remember, last summer was the first time ever that they did summer official visits. They brought in 30 kids in that first weekend of June, signed over, I think it was close to a dozen of them, a little bit more. That was the bulk of their 2023 recruiting class. So you mentioned Georgia, the 2-time defending national champions in there, Ohio State, Brent Venables, who used to work for Dabo out there at Oklahoma. I mean, man, if he went to Oklahoma, talk about the NIL opportunities. He's Bosworth 2.0 with that haircut. And Dabo is able to seal the deal. And I think if you're a Clemson fan, in previous years, is Sammy Brown committed at this point? Does this stretch out until later in the recruiting process? So I think if you're a Clemson fan, knowing, hey, they're not going to go into the transfer portal, right? But they are going to continue to recruit elite players. We talked about that 2023 defensive line class. They also got some talent in the secondary. I think this is a bit of a statement for Clemson. Hey, we're not going anywhere, right? We've adjusted a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see, what it looks like moving forward. I don't think Sammy Brown's going to be the only guy they add from that big recruiting weekend. And he's going to be the centerpiece for the class. Everyone, all the peers, all the other 2024 recruits know who Sammy Brown is, and I think he could help them get some other guys in the boat.
You said it perfectly. We got a long ways to go until that early signing period in December. But as of today, our breaking news, 5-star linebacker, the #1 player at that position, Sammy Brown, has committed to Clemson. Be sure you are subscribed to the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel for all things college football recruiting.